This is so exciting to have you here, Raff. I was introduced to you by our good friend Angus Wright Smith, so shout out to you, Angus.
Angus,
Um,
absolute
yeah,
gem.
little did I know that that coffee would turn into such a beautiful, fun friendship with so many shared passions and lived experiences. I mean, Raf, there's so much I could say to pump up your tires. Killer DJ, you're a hilarious comedian. You're a really sharp, emotionally attuned actor. But beyond all of that, like you're such a deeply caring human being. You have so much genuine compassion for those around you. And I know you've had to go through some darkness to reach that light and to share it with others. And I'm just really grateful for you, man, for being here, for being my brother, my friend, and for sharing, some of that love and light with us today.
I love you, Dave. Thank you for having me here. Have an absolute way with words. You are an absolute blessing to be around. Thank you for getting me in the feels right before we start. That's so sweet. I echo the same thing. I think that's why we resonate so much, because you are such a beautiful person and you echo a lot of the things that I used to not like about myself, but I've found to love. And I think you're a big proponent of that. And that's why I'm so grateful to be here today, mate. I love you very much. This is so cool. So thank you.
Yeah, lots of love, Raf. And even in that, maybe that we can use it as a jumping off point. What are the things that you didn't like about yourself?
Oh, the big thing today is I think self-sacrifice, constantly being a chameleon so that everyone would like me, but hating myself at the same time. So hating that I didn't have any opinion, hating that I didn't have any guts, banter, any give or take with friends or people. I just felt like I was some kind of ghost living life because I had to be all these external things, and I hated that internally. I think I didn't really understand it properly until I was a lot older. But yeah, just a lot of self-hatred that I'd mask with, oh, they love me, so it's okay, you know?
Where did that come from?
A deep, I think the self-hatred is like a cope mechanism, like the people pleasing, where it would be the masking, the performing, the achieving would cover up all of that. And it shields and shelters a really, really deep loneliness and isolation.
Mm.
And I said to you off the podcast, and I thought it'd be a good thing to share, is I can't remember a point in time growing up as a young boy, as a teenager, as a kid at any point in my life. Don't remember either of my parents giving me a big hug at all and saying, everything's going to be okay. I love you the way you are, just as you are. Cannot truthfully hold my hand up and say there was a point in time that I remember something like that. So unfortunately, the people pleasing was a way to feel loved, feel appreciated, and feel all the things that you just listed off today. And finally, I can say to you wholeheartedly, it still work, but I love all those things about me. And I've got to a point where I can say that, say it in my journal. I can say it to you. I can say it to people on cameras, which is awesome, but it's taken a very, very long time to get there.
It's beautiful show, brother.
Mm,
Thank you. And I relate so strongly as well,
mm,
as you know, my journey and I guess through achievement or performance or pleasing and meeting the conditions and expectations of parents or guardians or loved ones, that was a way to feel safe. That was a way to feel like I belong. I couldn't just be me and to
mm.
be someone else. So when you did achieve or perform in that way as well, like what would happen? If your parents didn't say to you, I love you just the way you are and didn't give you a hug, like what were they doing?
I think the biggest thing was if I didn't uphold the narrative in their minds, especially my narcissistic parent, if I didn't fit their mold or their pathway or the subjects that they wanted me to do, it wasn't so much overtly like, you need to do all the STEM subjects, otherwise I'm not going to speak to you for 2 weeks. It's like, it would be subtle, it'd be very gradual, or I wouldn't be going the direction of the STEM subjects, and there would be just minor shifts. Like I remember one of my parents saying, "Where did I go wrong?" When I was diverting to a different pathway, and I was starting to get a bit more creative, and I was starting to do my own thing. Is where did I go wrong? And it's not so much someone overtly pushing you and saying you must do this, which I'm sure people have experienced. I'd love to know your thoughts and what you've experienced. But yeah, it was more subtle, manipulative, or small ways of just nudging me, slowly breaking down my confidence in Raff needs to go this way, whether he likes it or not, and distorting my reality over time in small ways to the point where, like, it took me 2 years into a science degree. And it's a funny story I tell, is obviously a bit of a dark undertone to it, but I was dissecting a fish in my second year biology class. I'm like pulling its organs out, measuring it on a measuring tape. I'm like, I'm not going to do this for the rest of my life. Like, I don't enjoy this at all. What am I doing? I love performing. I love this. And it took such a long time, but I'm like, I'm holding fish intestines. What the hell am I doing? What am I doing? What is this? I don't enjoy this. It's interesting, but yeah. So there's those moments where I'm sure you've had the same, where you're just kind of like, what am I doing? What is this? This isn't me. This isn't my pathway. And your inner voice comes out. Did you have a moment like that, like the fish guts moment?
I love the fish guts. Look at me now, Mum.
Yeah. Look at me now, fish guts.
Oh my God. Well, it's so interesting that you say that statement that, one of your parents said, because I've also had a parent say, where did I go wrong? I decided to go against the grain as well. So yeah, man, the parallels are very, very wide and
Very
large
stark.
between
I'm
us.
sorry you've experienced that too.
Well, I want to make it abundantly clear for whoever's listening who might be able to relate, or maybe you don't. Like, this is not casting shame or blame, onto parents, because this is, I think, really an invitation to explore, perhaps why this level of manipulation or breaking down in confidence of a child unfolded in the first place. Like, what is the current level of consciousness or awareness or tools or traumas and programming that parents have gone through to be able to relate to their children in such a way? I mean, you're a psychologist to be, you're deep in your studies, you're really passionate about it. Knowing what you know and going through your own lived experience as well, like, what do you think motivated your parents to relate to you in that way?
Yeah, I appreciate that question. It was the normalizing of both people pleasing and coping mechanisms. Because at the end of the day, as hard as it is to be objective about it, when you've experienced it yourself and you've experienced manipulation, you've experienced a narcissistic parent, or you've experienced a partner who's been manipulative, at the end of the day, people pleasing and manipulation and narcissism are two sides of the same coin. And it is a hard pill to swallow for sure, because you're like, no, it's not. Like, they don't know what they're doing. But it's like, for you or I'll make up to survive as a kid, to be loved, to feel appreciated, to get emotional support from, we weren't getting it at home. So we had to achieve it in external ways through achieving high grades, doing really well in school, business, life, whatever, and then friendships as well. So psychologically, that was a coping mechanism for you or I. Whereas someone in a different family environment will be using a coping mechanism just like you or I, like our parents, that are using particular coping mechanisms. I know that one parent of mine would shut down and withdraw, which is actually what I took on. So withdrawal is a big coping mechanism for me. So when I want to take my time and just space out and be myself and get myself regulated again, I'll withdraw to my own detriment, which is what that parent did. The other parent survived through manipulation, distorting reality of everyone around them so that they felt safe, secure, and their mental state was appreciated. And throughout life, and still to this day, it's a survival coping mechanism. It works. It works because it's a mechanism. And I think the beautiful part about that psychologically is that you or I, and people listening that are probably more orientated to being a people pleaser, can be aware of it. Whereas the really depressing and sad part is that someone with a coping mechanism that's a bit more self-orientated, and I can get into that book reference, is that they're going to use that and not be aware of it and continue to do that. And there's less chance to break it than, say, someone who is in a people-pleasing mode. So it's a really hard pill to swallow that they're two sides of the same coin. They're coping mechanisms. Just one's really externally damaging and one in a way is just very internally damaging for you. So I don't know, how do you feel about all of that? Do you agree? Is there anything you challenge?
Oh my God, no, I mean, 100%, I agree. And when that's all that the perpetrators of that behavior have ever known, then it is normal. And when you're growing up, in that environment at home and you don't have any other, parties that aren't involved, it can seem like, oh, this is just the way things are. Yeah, maybe I am not good enough. Maybe, yeah, my needs don't matter. Maybe it's just the needs of my parents, and maybe this is just the way that life is. And so, and I lived that for a really long time. And, to come back to your question around like, what was my fish cuts moment? I was like, yeah, I mean, I remember, going through school and really striving hard in rowing, sport, academics. I had the perception that, my parents had invested so much in me, time, money, energy. They made a lot of sacrifices to put me through really good schools,
Yeah.
good programs. And I felt like it was my burden, my responsibility, and my obligation to really repay them with achievement, to show them that their return on investment was positive. And of course, I look back now, I'm like, that's hysterical. And but that little boy didn't know any better. And that was the only way that he could feel safe in his family.
Yeah.
And then that followed me into university as well and pursuing biomedicine, to go on to become a doctor, not because it inspired me, like fish guts. It's interesting. And I got to slice up human beings as well. Dead ones.
Yeah.
For the.
Oh, well, yeah. That's not what you told me off, Cohen.
Ralph, come on, man.
Yeah, come on, stick to it.
We'll edit that out.
We'll cut that out. Dead body, cut it up. We'll cut that out. What?
So yes, and then at university, I was like, man, like, I get it. There are all these other, guys and gals who, I went to school with who are pursuing his careers in medicine or law, or, that traditional archetype or profession that is deemed really worthy and celebrated by society. And certainly in Romanian culture, going for those quote unquote esteemed position meant that, you were a success. And if you didn't, if you went into like a blue collar job, you weren't doing well. And certainly doing something like me, like going against the grain and wanting to chart my own path into unknown territory, it was really terrifying, absolutely. And yeah, but ultimately what set me on that path was realizing I'm not doing this because I want to. I'm doing it because I want to make my parents proud of me.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that was my fish guts moment. And so I'm curious because this is, obviously a pattern that both you and I we've lived through many years. And usually that people pleasing starts when, I don't feel like it's safe to take up space.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm not worthy of, having my needs and my wants and my desires met and acknowledged. So what was that moment for you? Like, when did you realize, it's actually not safe for me to take up space here?
The first time it really became apparent, and I hadn't seen a psychologist or therapist at this point. I'd only probably seen a counsellor probably a couple of times at uni. It wasn't an amazing experience. They just said, "Oh, you're feeling a bit rough. Download the Smiling Mind app," but didn't really hold space, didn't really investigate. So I hadn't really explored that. I hadn't read any self-help books yet. I think it was just on the cusp. But I remember I was dating someone at the time who, and objectively, I'm going to be transparent on the podcast, but it's something that you'll come to realize in your healing. But I was dating someone that mimicked a lot of one of my parents, very narcissistic, self-orientated, and manipulative. Objectively, that was her coping mechanism. That's the way that she survived through life, but unfortunately would take it out on me, belittle me, break down my confidence. And I think towards the end, where I was trying to make the decision of whether to end this relationship or continue, I felt very alone, very isolated, very unsupported. But unfortunately, someone that's manipulative or narcissistic will make sure that they're in control and that they have some kind of domination over you, even if they're not emotionally supportive. They'll make it feel like they're a soundboard, they're supportive, they want the best for you. But in actuality, you're just funneling information and emotion to them. So I was speaking to my narcissistic parent about breaking things off. And I was like, I just can't, I can't do this. I don't know if I can do it. But I couldn't make that jump to break up with her. And this narcissistic parent was saying to me, yep, like we were talking about it. And I remember saying I didn't break up with her to my parent on the phone. And my parent just hung up on me mid-conversation. And I remember it was after a basketball game and I was sitting in my car and I was still involved with this parent at the time, and I just sunk into my car seat. And if anyone's knows what this feeling is like, where it's just this huge wash of shame and guilt and heaviness, and I've talked about it in my psych sessions a lot. It's just that utter and like deep shame, guilt, heaviness of like, I feel so alone and so sad right now because I wasn't pleasing the epitome of who I had to please in life. And I'm going through one of the most difficult, challenging periods. And all I needed at that point was what I do for myself now is everything will be okay, Raff. I love you for just the way you are. And you'll be able to get out of this at some moment. That's what I needed in that moment, but I didn't get that. And that was the first thing that came up to mind when you asked that question, and that was that moment. And from that day, it was that signal to be like, that this isn't right. I shouldn't be feeling like this. Mr. Should strong, but yeah, that was the moment where I'd done a little bit of work, a little bit of exploration. And that was kind of, that's in my mind that comes up. So I'd ask you the same thing. Was there a moment where you're like, during your teenage years or a young boy or even in the last few years, where there was that realization of something needs to give, something needs to change. I can't keep doing this anymore.
Firstly, man, like, thank you so much for sharing that. That's, really, really powerful and vulnerable. And it sucks to feel alone in a relationship and to feel alone in your family, and to feel like you're on your own. And I'm so proud of you to see how you have become your own best parent, to give yourself that love and support and encouragement and validation, that you weren't receiving from anywhere else.
Thank you.
It's really beautiful. Like, before I answer your question, like, because there's lots in there. I think that'd be really useful for whoever's listening. You talked a lot about, like, there's a lot about in the relationship, right? Because obviously, the people pleasing starts early on with achievement and trying to appease parents and meet their expectations, but then following you into a romantic relationship.
Yeah.
And you mentioned you were with someone who was manipulative, narcissistic, who was breaking down your confidence. What does it actually look like in practice? What can you perhaps share some examples?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think it starts small. As anyone who's been in probably a manipulative or a relationship like this, it starts very, very small. And it's those little moments that build up over time. And I like to call it's a good way to think about like a frog in a pot. Like a frog will not know that's boiling alive if you like gradually turn up the heat. And a manipulative person or someone that's narcissistic or self-orientated, more on the high end of the spectrum, will use a slot machine like breadcrumbing. It's called variable reinforcement. So same deal as a slot machine. They'll give you a lot at the start, or they might give you a big win right at the start, give you love bombing, heaps of flowers, lots of attention, lots of love, absurd amount of love. So it can either start in small ways and be insidious, or it's just this massive win, jackpot win at the pokies, and you're like, this is incredible. And then you feed more money in, and you feed more emotion in. I remember I was a few months into this relationship with this ex-girlfriend, and it's part and parcel. It's a lot of codependency, but we were out one night and with her and her friend at a venue, and I was running the night. I can't remember. It was like one of the events I was doing with some mates and she got so drunk and she threw a glass of water in my face and told me she didn't love me. This was probably 2 months in. And because I had so little self-worth and so just wasn't receiving any love in life, still involved with the narcissistic parent too. So there's that information for you. But to have that happen right at the start, if someone's ever done that to you, drunk or not, it's not acceptable. It's not acceptable. It's just in the case of reactive abuse, that's probably the only time that it would be acceptable because you're just at breaking point. But this was a person 2 months at the start of the relationship who just did it randomly. And I sat there, had water, and I was still comforting her. And it's moments like that that you need to take, but it takes a lot of self-awareness and a lot of work to be like, I don't want this as a standard in my relationship. I don't want to be with someone and self-sacrifice for breadcrumbs of love for that level amount of disrespect. And this isn't the high value man chat of like red pill conversation, like you got to treat women this way. It's more like someone should be able to treat you like a curious friend and be interested in you. But moments like that at the start, that would slowly escalate to more manipulative, confidence breaking, detrimental things. But it starts as really small, I don't really like you in that, or making fun of things that you don't like. I was skating at the time, and she would say, "Oh, you skate?" Contempt. Little moments of contempt that break you down slowly. Didn't skate for a very long time, seeing her, because it was embarrassing. I had a mountain bike right towards the end, and it was like an ick that I had a mountain bike. Make sense.
That makes no sense.
Yeah. So to compartmentalize that, I think it starts small. It can be big love bombing jackpot, or it can be a slow build over time. But you just have to keep asking yourself, is this something that I should accept? Is this something that I want to keep living through?
Yeah, that's spot on, man. It's such a really good question to ask oneself, and reminds me, a friend shared with me something which is like the standard that you walk past is the standard that you're accepting. So if you're tolerating this, then this becomes your standard, this becomes your boundary, this becomes how much self-respect you have. And so in that moment where you're in the car and you're engulfed by shame and guilt and you wanted to break up and you spoke to a parent and then they hung up, what did you do, knowing that you've been through all of this with this partner?
You just retreat. You just go inside yourself. I sat in the car, went home. I think I was in a bungalow at the time, like just immense shame and withdrawal and putting the mask on during the day, like, hey guys, like, happy go lucky, but you just some of the most challenging sleepless nights, weeks following that, because you're like, I don't have anyone. I can't speak to anyone about this. So I'm just going to stuff it all in, be happy on the outside, and that's where I'm going to get my love. I'll try harder. I'll love harder. I'll be better. I'll be fitter. I'll run better. I'll do whatever I can externally, because the shame and the guilt and the pain on the inside is so unbearable that I'll just externalize everything. And
Guilt around what?
guilt around not feeling like I can reach out to anyone about this. If the archetype of who I'm meant to receive maternal, loving affection, support, and unconditional love doesn't exist, and I don't have that in myself yet, and I don't have anyone that I can reach out to that bit, I'm just going to shut down, withdraw, and keep it all to myself and just deal with it.
Do you think it's possible to get unconditional love, to receive unconditional love from someone?
I think it has to be you, and this is something that I'm personally working through, and I love the question because I feel like some days I genuinely and honestly tell myself, I'm like, there's only so much self-love I can give. And like, I'm ready writing my journal. I'm like, how many times do I have to say I love you, Raff, before it like starts to hit? Like, for God's sake. But I believe it's possible, but I feel like it comes from you, which, I'm reading a book at the moment called New Happy by Stephanie Harrison. And she comments a lot in the book that there is a possibility to have endless love within you and give it and radiating it out. But that's honestly the work that I'm doing at the moment. But what do you think? Do you think there's unconditional love, and do you think it comes from you, or do you think it's possible to receive it externally?
I think it does have to come from you, because it's always just you. Wherever you go, there you are. And, you're born alone and you die alone. I think as soon as we start to outsource it to a partner or to a parent or to an opportunity, then we're actually like outsourcing that love that we can always offer ourselves in that moment.
Mm.
Because I think what's really beautiful about that, and it certainly hasn't been easy for me as well, because I went through a variety of different people, bosses, parents, partners, clients, to try and, in the past, to try and feel a sense of worth based upon how others responded to me. And you always lose when you play that game. You always lose. But what I've learned is, like, when I can become my own best source of unconditional love, everyone else gets to benefit, because then I'm not reliant or dependent on anyone. And if I enter into a romantic relationship, then it's not going to be one based on codependency and insecurity.
Mm.
It's going to be based on a deep, deep self love that both parties share, that get to kind of merge that together. And I think that's really, really powerful, because you're right. That, like, love is boundless. It's infinite. It's like the oxygen that we breathe. I appreciate you sharing that, man.
That's all right.
It's a good question. And, not like seeing the cost of this, or living with the shame and living with the guilt and feeling alone, like, and then taking yourself through the work to, to journal or to read books. Like, what is that turning point, and what does that journey look like for you, from playing this role and wearing the mask of the people pleaser to the strong, self-loving, courageous man speaking to today?
Yeah, love you, mate. I think because I'd like to know what your shift intrinsically has been too. For me, it's been the reverse frog in the pot. So I like to think of it the same way. You're positively manipulating yourself in a way where you're doing small things that build up over time. And sometimes it feels like you're going to the gym and you don't see any results and you're like, what am I doing this for? But all the little small wins add up over time. So small changes that I can think of. The first thing I thought of when you were asking that question is, in my journal, probably 6 to 8 months ago, I started writing at the start every single time in the last however many journal entries. I've been saying everything is going to go well and underlining it. And then I'll write whatever comes to mind. And then right at the end, I say, I love you, Raff. And on my whiteboard at home, obviously, if you want to get into the space of manifestation or feeling some kind of deep spiritual motivation, or just something intrinsically for you, it seems when you first hear about it, you're like, it's very woo-woo and very like, come on, man. Like, what are you doing? Like, let's all sit around the fire, bro, and like talk about our feelings and emotions, and like, let's really be centered with the universe. Like that's, I'm
And
sure.
sing Kumbaya.
Yeah, and sing Kumbaya and say and just like hold hands and like just feel the space. And like, I can absolutely wholeheartedly believe that people listening to that are like, bro, like, what are you doing? But on my whiteboard at home, I've got things that I say, I love you, Raff. Everything is going to be fine. Feeling shit is normal sometimes. And I get a bit embarrassed when people come over and they'll see the whiteboard. I've got goals on there. I've got like move to Canada, finish my GDPA, but I've just got all that positive stuff, values that I want to live by, positive qualities about myself. I've literally got on my whiteboard.
Well, hang on. Why are you embarrassed about that?
And that's the work. I'm embarrassed about it because it's the self-love aspect it is coming from a background where you've hated yourself and doing those things. It's almost imposter syndrome sometimes with yourself, because you're like, I used to hate myself. I used to loathe everything about me. I used to eat Nando's chicken and be shaking because I was so worried about what everyone else at the restaurant was thinking. And I used to get like eat the chicken. I'd be embarrassed. I'd be like, can we sit at the back of Nando's so no one can see me? Like, I used to be so riddled with anxiety and stress, and still it's there, but there's just like that underlying embarrassment. But it's a slow burn to seeing those things and be like, yeah, I feel that today. Or I like, yeah, look, I might be feeling a bit rough today, but I'm still handsome. I'm still handsome. Still got it going. Still got it fresh. Still popping. But it is still embarrassing. I'll be transparent. Where was I going with all of that?
Well, no, I think, like, I get what you mean, especially when, you've come from a place of despising yourself and loathing yourself, to then stepping into this new identity of self-love and self-respect, and really being goal-driven and working towards that. The old paradigm, or the old self-image, or the old version of you will pipe up and be like, who the fuck do you think you are?
Yeah. Yeah.
What?
Where's the kumbaya coming from,
This is
dickhead? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, in addition to that, if you have people coming over and they see the whiteboard as well, like I think unless they are engaged in a practice like that, then they may look at it and be like, that's a bit strange.
Yeah.
And I've said this before. I think it's a really, really powerful quote. I want to share it again.
Yeah.
People who are full of love trigger the fuck out of people who are full of shit.
Mm.
And I'm sure there'll be lots of people who might be triggered by this, but it's really, really powerful because when you get to that place of deep, deep self-love for yourself and for humanity and wanting to do good, it will trigger a lot of people who aren't in that place. And
Mm.
they will see it as ingenuine and inauthentic and fake and like you're putting on a show. And
Mm.
it's like I've been through a lot of darkness to
Mm.
get here. I've been through a lot of self-loathing and self-hatred and anxiety, which I can totally relate to, man. Like so many parties or events I would go to, I was terrified of going there alone and terrified of having a conversation with anyone.
Yeah.
I thought like, why would anyone want to talk to me? I'm just a piece of shit.
That is incredible, knowing the impeccable conversationalist you are today, lighting up every room you walk into. I remember going to the Young Achiever Awards a night with you, and you're like just bumping into this person, like, oh, it's so good to see you again. Just you could see faces light up of these people that I was like, oh, he knows this person, he knows this person. Oh, he's just going to go up on stage now and like, oh, he knows this person. And you're so focused and attentive on people and so caring. And yeah, it's really disheartening to hear that you were at a point very similar where you were so anxious to go to any social outing because you felt maybe you had to work for it or appease people. And yeah, knowing the person that you are today and the conversationalist and the away with words. My God. He ripped off at an event off the top of his dome. There would have been 20 people there. Thoughtful thing. This is a thoughtful, very personal thing to each individual at his own party. So, sorry, continue what you were doing, but it's just so frustrating to hear that you were at a point where you didn't feel like the person you are, the amazing, thoughtful person you are today. So how did you shift intrinsically? Where did that come from?
Thank you, Ralph.
That's okay. Off the top of the dome, you fucking.
Thank you, man. That really means a lot, man. That really means a lot. And yeah, before I answer your question, right, like you talk about being frustrating and disheartening. I have so much compassion for that young little boy who was just doing the best that he could, who was scared, who was so afraid of himself and his thoughts and people. And he thought the world was like a really scary place. I'm nothing but love for him. And I think that's part of the journey as well. I think that's, you talk about the self-love piece and saying I love you and, in the mirror, which is, powerful. I definitely do that and journal to myself and, journal to a higher power, if you want to call it God or Allah or consciousness or the unified field or the quantum field, or whatever it is. Like there's always been a force, or whether it's just me and the power within me that's always kind of guided me through really tough times. I think what has helped me intrinsically shift from that self-loathing and self-hatred to self-love and being able to hold a conversation, being able to, talk to people and be, really deeply interested in them and care about them is like paradoxically or as cliche as it may sound, is caring deeply about myself,
Yeah.
caring so deeply and really realizing that I am the most important person in my world. And it's not from a narcissistic or an arrogant or self-centered way. It's from a deep, deep love and care for honoring myself and not letting myself abandon my needs anymore. I mean, there were so many instances in friendships and relationships where I would like put on a mask and I would crack jokes and I would engage in banter that didn't really sit right with me. It wasn't really authentic to me. Or I would, go out and do drugs or drink alcohol, even though I knew that it wasn't really good for me.
Yeah.
Or, I would go out and, hang out with people or get stuck into projects and activities and jobs and workplaces and bosses that I knew weren't serving me. And every single time chipping away at my own self-respect by doing that. You hear about coming home to self and it can seem really airy-fairy and kumbaya and stuff. And it's like, fuck are you talking about?
Yeah.
Just give me the practical stuff.
Yeah.
How do we do it?
Give me the solution, which I'm sure a lot of people can relate with. Just give you the
Yeah.
fix.
And I think that, when I speak about coming home to self and that, it's like, acknowledging where are all the moments in time where I've sacrificed myself, where I've abandoned myself, where I haven't stayed true to who I am. Is it in those instances, in jobs, in workplaces, in relationships, in friendships, in business, whatever it is, just paying close attention. Deep down, I knew this wasn't right for me. Why did I do it anyway? What can I do differently to honor myself and, protect my peace and, respect my boundaries in the future? That's more of like a cognitive approach. But as you and I have spoken as well, and like going through my own journey with psychology and seeing a psychotherapist for 8 years and really appreciating the massive value that psychologists have in helping me understand my patterns, where they came from, and having that awareness was super important. What helped me shift it and I guess heal patterns for good and be able to stand firm in self-love and power and not feel embarrassed or ashamed of myself anymore is doing the deeper somatic work as well. Because I understood through my own journey and through my own research that the shame and the guilt that, you spoke about in the car, that's an energy that lives inside me.
Yeah.
And, and so coming home to self also means not just sitting with emotion and analyzing it and talking about it and journaling. And yeah, that's all really beautiful, but really getting deep into my body and letting it move through me and just, crying endlessly and screaming, and shaking, and bashing up a pillow. And it's so someone listening, you're like, that sounds crazy and unhinged.
Yeah.
Right. And yeah, maybe it is. Maybe it is.
Just
Maybe
a little bit.
I'm a crazy mofo.
Crazy mofo.
But at the same time, though, like that's been one of the most powerful things that I've done for me to process stuck energy, this emotion of shame and guilt and fear and anger and resentment. Like these are really, really heavy emotions, grief and loss. And with my grandma or past relationships or past identities and really like mourning the quote unquote loss. Now I realize it's not a loss. I actually gained so much through this relationship with my grandma. I gained so much through relationships with parents and loved ones and partners. Like I gained so much and so much beauty in that. But being able to realize that came through connecting to my body, because that's, I think, really coming home to self, coming home to that boy who entered the world, that child who had no self abandonment wounds or self betrayal wounds, who was just pure, pure childlike innocence and curiosity. And I think doing this cognitive and then somatic work to understand and have the awareness, but then also to feel and heal, that's been such a revolutionary game changer to help me come back to that, to that power and that love and that curiosity and that innocence and compassion for myself and for people around me.
The feeling is so powerful, isn't it? Like the being in your body, because it's the rationalization can only get you so far. The cognitive awareness of this is the A plus B equals C kind of formula of I'm a people pleaser because my parents were this way and this is my external environment. But as in your body, still feeling it, still feeling the emotions. How have you been able to move those emotions through your body, and how are you working through that at the moment? Because I remember off the podcast, you've told me a number of times, and it's incredibly frustrating. It's like the work never ends. So people listening, the work never ends. How fun's that? It's fucking great. It never ends.
Well, actually, hang on. I want to stop you there.
Yeah.
So
it never ends.
No.
Blame him. It's his problem.
Before we get carried away. So I do, and this may not resonate with anyone, and I'm prepared to accept that. I believe that healing old wounds, in this lifetime has a finite point. I think doing work around mum, doing work around dad, doing work around past relationships and past partners, of course, the imprint, the memory still lives in your nervous system. I get that, right? I totally respect that. But the pattern, right, of self-sabotage, of self-betrayal, of self-abandonment, I believe that can be healed. And I've experienced that in my own life. I've seen that, in my clients' lives, in my friends' lives who are doing this type of work as well. So there is a finite point where you can not just understand your patterns, but heal your patterns for good, 100%. Now, does that mean that life isn't going to serve you curveballs in the future and slap you
Grab and
across the
twist,
face.
yeah.
Of course not. That's still going to happen. But you'll be responding to those situations and to those circumstances with a greater level of peace and a greater level of congruence and authenticity and truth, as opposed to unconsciously reacting to them and repeating those same old patterns, which could look like if you've had struggles with rejection in the past, right? And you apply for a job or you try and sign a client and they say no. The difference between having done this form of deeper inner work and not is realizing, okay, so someone said some words and something happened, but that doesn't reflect who I am. Now, the old version of you might be like, well, see, I knew it. I'm a piece of shit.
Yeah,
No one
internalize
cares
it.
about me. I'm just not good enough. And then the cycle repeats itself, right? So there is an end to the work, but like when you become when the emotional charge of past experiences is liberated, wink, wink,
Yeah.
from the nervous system, then you stop unconsciously reacting to these situations and circumstances, right? And then you become a vessel to allow emotion to move through you. I'm crying every other second day. And that may seem wild, but when you think about it, children cry pretty much every second day as well.
Yeah.
And I think children are the most beautiful, exemplary forms of authentic self-expression. Something doesn't go their way and they rage and they have a tantrum and they cry and they allow that to move through them as opposed to suppressing it and holding it in.
Yeah.
Right. But we get taught that that's what you got to do because otherwise you're deemed as weak or crazy or too emotional or too sensitive. Insert here, whatever your story is, right? So being able to do that work, it's a bit of a long-winded answer, but
No,
to
I
bring it
love
in
it.
for a
Yeah.
landing,
As a podcast, baby.
to bring it in for a landing, like that really means that you can then meet life with a greater level of emotional attunement, and then you can kind of listen to your body and be like, huh, okay, this happened. I'm feeling a bit of anxiety come up. All right, let's really feel it. Let's really feel it. Let's cry if I need to, and let's shake if I need to, and let's scream if I need to, and let it move through me. So you'll always be doing work, but the patterns that have been silently driving your life can be ended for good. As Carl Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will just call it fate.
Very true. And then that work becomes a different kind of work and it never ends because you don't want it to end. So instead of like once you feel liberated from your cycle and you're breaking the cycle, then the work you're doing with, say, going against the people pleasing grain or leaning into rejection and you're feeling it in your body and you're not suppressing it anymore, you almost want to have those releases. And it's such an interesting shift. And you're so right. And I was just being a bit playful before about it, but it doesn't end. But yeah, you're right. There is a finite point, and I feel like challenges in my life still come up. And I can share a moment I had in therapy recently where I was like, wow, I want more of this. And I want more of what you've just shared, being in a vessel where emotion flows through you. For acting, that is the embodiment of what makes actors so incredibly good. They can just let things flow through them. So a conversation and a moment on camera looks like you're just experiencing it at home with you and your partner, or you're having an argument with your partner and the emotions are flowing through them like they're just vessels that you're watching. And being able to be emotional and tap into those things, that's something that I'm trying to do more and actually want more of. So did you feel more comfortable and allowing yourself to be a vessel and be liberated? Because I still feel like there's trapped emotions, and that's the work that I'm trying to do where it does feel suppressed still. And I am struggling to, have a release or feel like it's not woo-woo to be, having an emotional release when I know how cathartic it can be. It's the work I'm doing right now, like in my psych sessions. So how have you felt more comfortable being a vessel?
Yeah, Raf, I think it's safety, right? And even in the language that you used before, you said something around the lines of I'm struggling to let myself have a release. I think even in that, like you are your own obstacle to the release. you that you think you are is in the way of allowing you to let go.
Mm-hmm.
I think seeing it as a struggle is might seem small, but it's very subtle, and it's a subtle form of resistance
Yeah.
that is being inserted into there. Like, and I think you get into the whole topic of surrender, and I think that's really important because then I just allow whatever is to happen. I don't sort of struggle. I don't resist against it, and I think part of that comes back to this notion of safety,
Mm.
and feeling safe in your own home, feeling safe with a practitioner or a therapist or a coach or whoever it is, to be able to process
Mm.
and to be able to feel, and then to be able to then teach and re-educate your nervous system to know that, hey, it's okay. It's okay. You can let it go. It's all right. I'm here with you,
Mm.
and we can work through this. It might seem a little bit wild, but like actually having a conversation with your body is really powerful. There's actually recent research that came out that has shown that talking to your body positively,
Yeah.
it's actually a far greater impact on health and well-being than most supplements.
Yeah, I've read
Right.
that too. The hand on the heart, or just like breathing with yourself and saying everything's going to be okay. I've read that in a few different books and stuff. It's just that creating that safety is so important, isn't it?
Yeah, and so I mean, you sort of touched on it around in your therapy session. If you're open to sharing, like
Yeah.
what how's that been going for you, and what has that practice been like for you in terms of finding safety and being able to release?
I think like the biggest uh, shift, and it happened this year. It kind of, the work shifted from cognitive to somatic, and I've been chasing this feeling, and it's going to be seem quite intense, but you would attest to this. We've been talking about it already. But I was in a session doing what's this in psychotherapist sessions. They'll do this thing called inner child work, and you hear about it in self help books and stuff, where you're talking to your inner child, and you're creating a safe space for the little boy or little girl in you that didn't feel, or little non-binary, uh, no label child that didn't feel heard or seen, and you, your therapist will sit opposite you and get you to sit into an emotion, just like, I'll just do some breathing, get centered like we did at the start of the podcast, and just grounding yourself, and then they'll start to gradually take you through. I don't know if anyone's done meditation or like listen to an audio book where it's like a very soothing person, and they'll take you through. Can you remember a time where you felt that immense shame, guilt? There's a certain process to it, but it'll take you back to that emotion, or just remember a time recently where you felt an immense amount of shame and guilt, and then they'll just get you to sit in that, and they'll get you to ask whether you feel it in your body. And I was doing this probably this year. We just shifted into this sort of stuff, and I'll say it's really tense in my shoulders, and my body language will be like this. I'll like be tense, my shoulders will be in, I'll be clenching a little bit, and I remember the memory. And then he'll say, okay, well, let's hold that feeling and go back as far as you can to an earlier memory where you remember feeling like this. And you'll be surprised, but in a lot of scenarios, something will come up. Something. And it's that whole thing of where you feel like you can get to a safe place to remember that memory. Sometimes it'll come really quick, other times it'll be really difficult. But the first time I did this, I went back to an example. It wasn't even about my parents, it was about when I was in year one. And I was so scared to ask and put my hand up to go to the toilet because I just didn't feel, I felt like I was a nuisance. I felt like immense shame or guilt for asking to get my needs met. This is how, it was a year one class. I'm a tiny little boy. And because I was so scared to put my hands up, I wet myself in class. And we were going through that memory, and it's easy to talk about, which is so strange. That's the weird part. It wasn't like smacked around. Like for me, it didn't feel like an extremely traumatic memory. And then he took me through the second part, was like, okay, hold that feeling, pretend like you're, go into the emotions of little Raff in that moment. And what does little Raff need in this moment? And I cannot describe this feeling because you have to feel it for yourself. But I was like in my body language clenching, and I like lips started quivering. And I said, I just need a hug. broke down, uncontrollably sobbing for, I can't remember the timeline, head in my hands, just convulsing, sobbing like for 5-10 minutes. I came back up and, my psychologist was tearing up but like it was such a powerful moment, and I've been chasing that ever since because it's so natural for me to rationalize, to cognitively. That's why this has happened. My parents did this, but feeling it, like you said, in my body, I've been chasing that and trying to learn how to accept that and create more safety in my body for more moments like that. So that was a shift. It happened this year. And you'd said it a few times where it's like you'll have these big emotional releases. And I'm like, all right, shut up, Dave. All right, Mr. Woo Woo Kumbaya. And then like that happened in session. And I was like, oh my God. Yeah, that was, something I've been trying to chase, and that safety ever since. And I'm not shut up, Dave. I'm just joking around. Like, I love everything you say. So just being a pest here. Yeah.
So beautiful, Raff.
Thanks, man.
Thank you, man. Yeah, what a heartfelt, touching moment, and opportunity to really give that little boy the love and support and reassurance that he didn't have. Yeah, that's so special, man. So special. Inner child work is deeply, deeply powerful, and something that's really benefited my life as well. And you become, there's a protocol called ideal parent figure, IPF. Inner child work is related to that, where if you perhaps lacked that level of safety and support and reassurance and love growing up, you get the invitation, the opportunity to become the ideal parent figure for yourself, or to think about someone who shows up for you with love and support and encouragement, and even like imagine them and sort of emanate as them, for them to kind of be the parent that you perhaps never had as well. So cool, man. And I'm really, really proud of you for leaning into that work as well, because it can seem really scary, and it can seem really confronting. And, to whoever's listening, maybe you're like me and you thought, shit, well, if I just start crying, it may never stop, and I'm just going to become really emotional and I don't know what will happen. And yeah, I get that. I've definitely felt that as well. I can tell you, going through it and being able to have a better relationship with myself, is that it's actually one of the most beautiful acts of self-respect, self-love, to really feel, and to allow yourself to feel. And so what I would, invite you into a new perspective, Raff, is instead of chasing that feeling anymore, because then that inserts time, as in like I needed, and doing, it inserts activity, as in I need to be doing something to create, to allow myself to feel, and also time, like it's not here in the present. What I invite you into is allowing it to happen.
Yeah.
Because then, you're not really doing anything, and it's right here, right now. I mean, I was getting emotional as you shared that as well.
Yeah.
So I don't think you need to chase it. And, as we bring this in for a landing, we've gone from the wound, the pattern of people pleasing and how it showed up for you, through performance in relationships, and how parents and partners showed up and embodied these narcissistic, manipulative tendencies. And you're taking yourself through this beautiful work. What does the new version of yourself look like now, instead of giving into those old patterns of people pleasing and sacrificing self and betraying your needs? What does that look like now in terms of boundaries and
God, I love that seamless shift. I love that segue. That was beautiful. That's like, it ties in so nicely. Thank you for shifting that perspective too, because it's before I go into like the more, what does it look like now? What are the boundaries now? But thank you for, because I could tell you you're really feeling that story too, what I shared. So thank you. And yeah, really allowing it, being kind to myself is so important, which is probably the first thing, is like that critical voice of like, I need to chase that feeling. I need to be more processed. I need to feel it more in my body. I should feel it. Mr. Should. We know Mr. Should. Yeah, Mr. Should's back. Mr. Should. But it's like, I should be crying more. I should be able to cry immediately in an acting scene. I should be healed. I should be liberated. But It's your pathway is your pathway. So, and I'm still working through this and learning how to do this. And it's the positive work. It's the work that you want to do. It's getting to a point where you feel safe enough in your inner child and you as a person to be like, I'm doing this pathway for me. I'm not driving myself into the ground because I care about my energy, time, and people I want to be around. So loving yourself more shows up in practical ways, but as a recovering people pleaser, I love saying that. Saying no more, or little wins that I've been having, a big one for me is because I'm previously naturally just agreeable, never had an opinion. I'd always be like, if someone said, oh yeah, something off color about a certain group, I'd be like, and just laugh or be involved with it, even if it goes against everything I like deep down thought about. And now I'll just do it in little ways. So if someone says something that I don't agree with, it's very hard to challenge. I'm very conflict averse. So that's something I'm working at. But if someone says something I don't agree with, I'm just silent now. Or someone's very self-orientated in a conversation, cool, noted. There's this awesome trial lawyer. He's been on Stephen Bartlett's podcast a number of times. I can't remember his name. He's this dude from Texas, very cool, calm, collected. And when he says he's dealing with someone difficult, or someone's like trying to like, you have a fat head, Raff, or you have this, or you just like, did you say that to hurt me? Like question back to them and say like in a cool, calm, collected demeanor, or they say something that's not true. Appreciate your perspective, or noted, and just like wash. That's them. That's their noise. That's their choice. That's their pattern. And saying no more or being silent. That's what's been really helpful in conversations, showing up in environments. I'd much rather be spending time with you, you beautiful human being, and doing this podcast and being in a centered space. I felt like I've been in flow state the whole time I've been here. I've just been so connected with you. I genuinely, the only times I remember that there's cameras and microphones is when I'm actually like just starting to make connection. But I've been so in flow state with you today. And it's a big indicator that this is a space. This is something that enriches me. There's no monetary value from this. There's no external gratification. Yes, there's likes, comments, and engagement, but that we're in flow, I feel. I hope you're in flow. And that it's finding more interactions and spaces like that are going to enrich you instead of places where you feel like you're drained. So that's another self-love and care. And I'm trying to think why I'm thinking of more. What does it look like for you?
That's perfect, Raff. Really beautiful examples. And I can relate to you. I think it's choosing activities that are nourishing and pour back into you. And yeah, man, this whole conversation is just for real organic and easy. It's just like any other chat with you. And so yeah, even like I've shared on my story recently, like one of the questions to look back on for 2025 is what made me come alive in 2025 and who or what drained my battery. But what I see in you, Raf, is you're always seeking out people and places and activities that really light you up. Whether it's your acting or your comedy, or psychology study, or me.
Yeah, you. Yeah.
In these conversations, and it's beautiful. And you've been like a huge inspiration for me.
Yeah, likewise.
In terms of doing that, and so yeah, I'm really grateful that we could have this chat, and I'm really proud of you as well, because I know I can hear where you've come from, and how much self introspection and inquiry that you've done, transition from a guy that was shaking while having Nando's to being the confident, beautiful, courageous, vulnerable man you are today. Yeah. So last question, Raff.
Yeah.
What does being liberated mean to you?
First thing that comes to mind is breaking the cycle and enjoying life from an intrinsic point of view. Enjoying life because you want to do it for you, not because you want to do it for any external marker, which is a ongoing thing. But that's what liberation means to me.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
I love you.
Thank you man.
Thank you for having me here. It's such a beautiful conversation, and I echo everything that you just shared about me. It's just I wouldn't be sitting here with you and be in flow state with you if I didn't feel just so heard and understood and valued as your friend, and the life that you bring to conversations and content and everything that you do and your healing work and and liberation. It's awesome. So very inspiring.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah.
Thank you. Where can people find out more about what you do and who you
Ooh.
are and
Yeah, bit of a plug.
amazing gifts to share?
Cool. Thank you. Plug wise, I am on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube as rafferty.dall. And I think YouTube is Rafferty Dall, but rafferty.dall for tags and stuff. And then what else? I also have a podcast, which Dave has been on twice. Once with Tyler and I think another time, maybe once. I think once, not enough. Yeah, probably more. But it's called Finding the Middle. That's on Spotify. And the conversation with Dave and Tyler was just like, again, flow state. We were just like, it was gas bagging with all these incredible thoughts. So check it out. And that's where you can find me.
Beautiful. Well, thank you for making it to the end of the episode. My friend. Please do follow Raff, get around him. He's
Thank you.
an amazing man and he has so many creative gifts to share with the world. He also does a Twitch stream. Every Wednesday night.
Yeah, Twitch as well. Thank you.
Unpacking Pokemon. So get around that. And we covered a lot in this episode around people pleasing and self-betrayal and self-sabotage, with parents, with relationships, in work. So if you can relate to any of that, or if you know someone who is going through that and they're really struggling and, you found some value from this conversation, please share it on. This is just a small way then you can, help someone on their journey and start a conversation that matters. So I love you so much. Thanks for being here. I'll see you in the next episode.
See you soon. I love you guys. Mwah.